today, we're going to ask this question, why God matters. And we're going to look at the implications of atheism. Before that, I want to look at 3 issues: meaning, value, purpose. You've often heard me say that there are 3 things that every human being desires in life. It's to be loved unconditionally, to be accepted for who they are, and to have a hope or a purpose in life. There are many things in this world that can touch on 1 or 2 of those things. A few things that touch on all 3. We're going to find out today where without God, hope and meaning really just becomes a figment of our imagination. And that is a huge statement to make. Because, here's why. I am stating that anyone who does not believe in God, our Creator, they don't have a reason to have hope. They don't have a reason to have purpose. They do not have a reason for meaning. They may have meaning, they may have purpose, but they have no reason for that. It becomes a self-defeating, self-refuting statement of life. So, these 3 things I want to look at today. The implications of atheism is really quite stark. The first one is this, that life has no meaning, that it doesn't matter. Or as Professor Dawkins says, there is no design, no purpose, nothing but pointless indifference. Doesn't that just make you feel good? That you mean absolutely nothing. You are nothing but a DNA replicator. And once you're gone, your DNA, well, that's gone. But it's okay. Live your life to the fullest, because when it's over, it's over. It's just pointless indifference. Yay, you. Number 2. Life has no value. There is no good. There is no evil. There is no right. There is no wrong. Or as one brand says, there is no God. Therefore, there is no restraint. There is no reason to even be human. 3rd, life has no purpose, no reason. Famous atheist Weinberg says this: the more the universe seems coherent or understandable, the more it seems pointless. That literally you are just a culmination of DNA strands, molecules, atoms, strung together in a certain way that creates a face and a body. And it might be enjoyable to look at that face, and for some of us, it's not so much. Anyways. Some of us will have long hair, some of us will have short hair, just kind of by, design. No, wait, I can't say that because there really is no design, because that you have to have a designer for that. So it really is just pointless indifference. I mean, you're here just because the universe coughed you out. Doesn't that make you feel good? This is the implications of atheism. You have no meaning for existing. And this world would be no better off had you not existed at any point in time in our futile history. And that once you're dead, your genetic material and your bodily material will just disintegrate, and it will go back to the dust, as we say. And people might remember you for a few years, and if you're a great individual, people might shrine you on YouTube to where others can look at you in the future, way off into the future. But beyond that, pointless indifference. Because in the end, this universe will grow cold, it will die, our galaxy will collide with the Andromeda galaxy, and all that exists in this world today, all of these buildings, all this art, all this hope that you think that you have, really is just going to end, and no one, nowhere in the entire universe will ever remember you, because this universe will end, and, well, that's it. Welcome to atheism. You know, it's amazing to me that there is a great example of the consequences of atheism that you probably aren't even aware that exists. Let's explain it this way. For the fate of all mankind and the fate of animals, well, their fate is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. Indeed, they all have the same breath. There is no advantage for mankind over animals for all this futility. You are just the same. You have no more consequence than that of a mosquito in the grand scheme of things. This is the implication of atheism. And it comes from that great author hundreds of years ago, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Your fate is the same. All is futility. And here, nestled within the middle of Scripture, we have this book called The Preacher, Ecclesiastes, where the author of this book, Solomon, gives us a keen insight into the implications of atheism and what atheism means. And if you do not have a belief in God, what stands to reason logically that your life will entail unless you make a jump into faith, which most atheists do that. They say that they're atheism, they live in materialism, they live in humanistic philosophy, but they always make a jump into the realm of faith, into the realm of immaterial when it comes to things like beauty, when it comes to love. Unless you're a true atheism, and then this is what your life looks like. 1. Science and learning is absolutely meaningless. If you have your scripture open up to Ecclesiastes, we are actually going to look at the consequences of atheism. And I find it so interesting that God actually gives us this in the scriptures. In Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 16 through 18, listen to this. I said to myself, behold, I have magnified and increased wisdom more than all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my mind has observed a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. And I set my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I realized that this is striving after the wind. Because in much wisdom, there is much grief. And increasing knowledge results in increasing pain. Without God, if there's no belief in God, then you have no belief in the immaterial. You have no belief in anything beyond. There is no hope. Even our best virtues of learning and gaining knowledge and wisdom and studying and science and even learning medicine ends up in futility because it doesn't matter. It ends in pointless indifference. But it does get better. Do you think that pleasure is meaningful? Well, no, if you're an atheist, even pleasure can't be meaningful. Look at chapter 2, verses 1 through 2. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure, so enjoy yourself. And behold, it too was futility. I said of laughter, this is madness. And of pleasure, what does it accomplish? Nothing. It's meaningless. Well, maybe we'll try success. No, sorry. Success too is meaningless. Thus I consider all my activities which my hands had done and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity. Striving after the wind, there was no profit under the sun. Once you're dead, you're dead. Anything that you accumulate, any knowledge that you have, any of the pleasures that you have, literally die with you. There is nothing beyond. It is pointless indifference. Well, maybe we should search for wisdom. Wisdom. Let's go with wisdom. Hey, maybe we can pass on our knowledge to other people. Well, look at 15 and 16 of chapter 2. And I said to myself, as is the fate of the fool, it will be on me as well. Why then have I been so extremely wise? This too is vanity. No lasting remembrance of the wise man, same as the fool, insomuch as in the coming days all will be forgotten. How the wise man and the fool will die alike. Pointless indifference. Well, I know what I'll do. I'll take care of my son. Take care of my daughter. I'll take care of my family. That will surely give me some kind of purpose and meaning. I mean, at least internally, right? And then when I die, I'll at least feel good about myself. Well, no, that doesn't work real well either. Preacher says this, thus I hated all the fruit of my labor, for which I had labored under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. Yet he will have control over all the fruit of my labor, for which I have labored by acting wisely under the sun. This too is futility, it's vanity. Life without God, pointless indifference. It matters not who or what you are. Well, I know what I'll do. I'll become a ruler, I'll become a judge. I'll spend my life helping people. I will turn myself to justice and equality. And I will make my life serving the nonprofit organizations and taking care of those who are less fortunate. That surely will give me meaning. Well, and preacher said, no, not really. Because in a world without God, justice and equality, it matters not. A person who lives their life being good to other people and a person who lives their life murdering other people, their life ends the same. There is no justice afterwards. There is no God who is demanding that justice and holiness be done. So they both die the same. The consequence of it doesn't matter. Even the guy or the lady who goes out and mass kills people, or mass shootings where hundreds of people die, it doesn't matter. They're just mosquitoes anyways, in life without God. Well, what about justice and equality? Doesn't matter. Without God, justice doesn't matter. Without God, helping the poor doesn't matter. Without God, seeing a baby lying on the side of the road, dying from cold and hunger, there's absolutely no reason to save it. There's absolutely no reason to do anything good to it. Because it doesn't matter what you do. There's no point. It's just a DNA replicator. Survival of the fittest. It's obviously not fit. Let it die. It's just an evolutionary process. It doesn't matter without God. The morality of saving that human being matters not in an atheistic world because there cannot be hope. It's just pointless indifference. Justice doesn't matter. Chapter 4. Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of the oppressor was power, but they had no comfort to them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead, more than the living who are still living. But better off than both of them is the one who never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. Wow. Pointless indifference. This is what atheism has to offer you. And in chapter 2 of the book that you're going through, On Guard, by Dr. Craig, points this out. The absurdity of life without God. I know some of you are thinking this is pretty rough, right? This is pretty bad. How would anybody want to live this way? Very quickly, we're going to go through 2 more pages of the absurdity of life without God as it touches on literally every single aspect of your life. Number 7, position and power. Meaningless. And by the way, don't search for success because cash is meaningless. I am not good to people because I can get things out of them. I am good to them because God has been good to me.
Amen.
It is the key difference, one of the key differences between atheism and theism. Because God is my creator, because God is your creator, you bear the image of God in you. Therefore, I must respect you and be good to you, because in doing so, I am respecting and doing good to my creator. Key difference. Cash is meaningless, because people are just going to use it, and they'll use you in an atheistic world. I once heard a statement that said, when you go through the tombs and you look at all the tombstones, and you see person's name, year of birth, year of death, and there's always this statement that says, those two things don't matter. What really matters is what?
The dash.
The dash. Oh, the dash is what matters. And that sounds so good in a frame, and you hang it on your wall, and it's like, yes, I want to make sure every day matters. Because the dash matters. Well, not in atheism. In atheism, the dash doesn't matter. Because eventually you're going to get to the year, and then your DNA structure and everything that you are, it'll go back into the ground and produce oil for us. That's what really matters. Yeah, the dash doesn't matter. Listen to what the preacher says in chapter 5, 15 and 16. As he had come naked from his mother's womb, so he will return as he came. He will take nothing from the fruit of his labor that he can carry in his hand. This also is a grievous evil, exactly as the man is born. Thus he will die. So what advantage to him who toils for the wind? Nothing. The dash doesn't matter. An atheistic ideology. In fact, planning and preparing is meaningless. Might as well just live your life by the seat of your pants, because plans don't matter, because the end result doesn't matter in an atheistic ideology. This is verse 12. For who knows what is good for a man during his lifetime, during the few years of his futile life? Don't you just enjoy reading this stuff? I mean, this is great. It makes you so happy. Your futile life, it's meaningless. You really don't know what's good for you in these few years of your futile life. Maybe you say, I'll just be good to people. Well, again, be good, being evil, neither matters. Chapter 7, verse 15. Now I understand, this is a very long portion of this sermon, and it's terrible. I get it. Change is coming. I promise. I have seen everything during my lifetime. Futility. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his wickedness. And the preacher is making this statement. In this atheistic life, neither one matters. Doesn't matter if you're righteous and you die young, righteous and die old. Doesn't matter if you're wicked and die young, wicked and die old. Pointless indifference. Doesn't matter. All you are is just a DNA generator. And this is what the preacher in Ecclesiastes is talking about. The futility of these belief systems. They don't make sense. You can't live by them. You can't. If everybody lived this way, there would be no humans left, period. We'd all kill each other. There would be nothing left. All would be futility. Why exist at all? Let's go on. Joy, joy, joy. Being honorable or being wicked. Doesn't matter. It's all meaningless. Verse 14 of chapter 8. It doesn't matter if you're honorable. It doesn't matter if you're wicked. They're going to die. Justice can't be meaningful. Look, chapter 9, verse 2 and 3. It's the same for all. There's one fate for the righteous, one fate for the wicked. One for the good, one for the not good. Verse 3. This is evil in all that is done under the sun. There is one fate for all men. That's its point. If you have a life, if you have an existence without God, if you have an existence without objective morality, if you have an existence without an objective creator, a true creator, someone who has placed his design into human existence, someone who gives ultimate purpose to human existence, then everything is pointless, indifference, and nothing matters. Justice cannot be done. True justice cannot be done because it doesn't matter how you live. Life in and of itself is meaningless. Religion, meaningless. Living a long life, meaningless. Everything, meaningless. Chapter 12, verse 8. Let's look at that one before we move on. It's very simple. Vanities of vanities. Futility of futility, says the preacher. All is futility. All is vanity. All is meaningless. Why does God matter? He matters because without him, everything is meaningless. Everything. And you may ask, okay, do people actually believe this? Do atheists actually believe this? I'm glad that you asked. Because I'm going to give you a few things to take home. First guy I want to talk about is Greg Epstein. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Greg. Greg is a humanist, atheist, chaplain at Harvard. Right, how do you get an atheist chaplain? Yeah, some of you are thinking that, right? Yeah. But he's an atheist. And I watched an interview of his, and the question was asked. He said, the interviewer says, Greg, I know you spend a lot of time talking to people about meaning and purpose, and there's been a lot of accusations that atheists don't have meaning. There's no reason to have purpose in life and meaning and hope. How do you respond to that? This was his response from Mr. Gray. I think these days, there are so many people who have concerns. I'm meeting with as many as possible to talk about meaning and purpose of life because people are really afraid of the change that's coming in society, whether it be climate change, tech changes, or something else, including changes of belief in religion. People are worried that the world is not what it used to be. Being atheist means really thinking deeply about how we are all only human, and there is so much we can do for one another to make life better for everyone. Now, I want to point out a couple of things if you haven't seen it already. One, he doesn't answer the question. Okay? There's nothing in this answer that gives people purpose or meaning. Nothing. Nothing. Are people concerned about the future? I'm sure that we are. And it's not that an atheist can't look at the future and say we need to be concerned about it. He can intellectually be honest and say we need to be concerned about the future. But what he doesn't answer is why. Why does it matter to be concerned about the future? If God does not exist, and if we are just going to die, and if there is only pointless indifference in this world, why be concerned about the future at all? There is no reason. There is no objective that we are striving for or reaching for. It's all pointless indifference. Nothing matters. Climate change doesn't matter. Who cares if the sun is going to explode in 10 million years? So? The whole universe is going to die. So? It's just pointless indifference. No design, no purpose, no hope, no reason for existence. We all might as well commit suicide and end it all now because it doesn't matter. Your happiness won't matter. Your success won't matter. Your accomplishments don't matter. Leaving a little something for your kids doesn't matter. Being good to your wife, to your spouse, to your husband doesn't matter. They're just DNA generating machines. They're going to break down eventually anyways, right? Trade them in while you've got the time. That's atheistic, determinate philosophy, and ideology. It doesn't matter. And they can't give us an answer of why it matters. Why does climate change matter to an atheist? In that philosophy, why does it matter? The whole universe is going to die anyways. It's just pointless indifference. What does it matter if it's 100 years earlier, or 1,000 years earlier, or 2,000 years earlier? It doesn't matter. It's just pointless indifference. Everything's coming to an end. Your material is going to end. You're going to stop being a DNA generator. Nothing matters. What you do doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. Why take people to court? Why put people in prison? We'll answer that question in a moment. Few things. 2019, research on atheists from the Pew Research Group. 4% of Americans, 2020, 2019, were atheists. These are mostly young, white, educated men who are aligned with the Democrat Party. That's just research, okay? Not making any statement beyond that. Most of them aligned that way. Most of them white, most of them young, most of them males. Those who claim atheism, and most of them well-educated, college-educated and beyond. 35% think of atheists. Think about the meaning of life weekly. I can understand that. If you're living in such a way where you think that life is pointless and meaningless, that would make me wonder about my life as well and what's happening. 31% say they feel a deep sense of spiritual peace. Now, I'm not really sure how they square this with their ideology, okay? If you believe in no God, that means you believe in no spiritual state, you are a materialist. How then do you have spiritual immaterial peace? Coherence just ain't there. It's not thought through. It's just not thought through. And what happens is, again, they're making leaps into the world of faith in order so that they can have some type of happiness. They leave the materialistic and they jump into the immaterial and pull that back. And I'm going to live, in some cases, in this immaterial world. Why? Because you truly cannot deal with what atheism leads you. You can't live that way. There was no one who can live that way. You truly can't live that way. You will always, nearly always, make a jump into the immaterial spiritualist world. Atheists are 1.5 times as likely to state that money is what gives life meaning. I find that interesting. 70% of atheists believe that churches do more harm than good in society, and 93% state that religious organizations have too much influence in politics. That makes sense, right? That makes sense. And besides, if the church is making inroads into politics, if you actually have people who believe in God and live by a standard of good and evil and that there's hope and purpose in the world, why would you want that in your politics? Sure sounds like a good deal to me. I wish more of our politics had that in mind, right? What is good? What about justice? All these people who are in prison, I mean, surely we can't actually claim that people are doing things that are wrong if there is no God. If it all just is pointless indifference, surely we can't claim that anyone should go to jail or prison for anything that they do. How can justice be determined? This is William Provine. This is what he said. He's passed away now. But this is what he says about free will. Free will is not hard to give up because it's horribly destructive to our society. Free will is what we use as an excuse to treat people like pieces of crap. Don't tell Chris I said that, but you can tell her it's in there. Is she here? Oh, crap, she's there. Oh, treat people like pieces of when they do something wrong in our society. We say to the person, you did something wrong out of your free will, and therefore we have the justification for revenge all over your behind. That's your rear end. I think they cleaned that up a little bit. It's fine. We put people, listen to this, we put people in prison, turning them into lousier individuals than they ever were, this horrible system is based on the idea of free will, which is based on the idea of God. Okay? Because you can only have free will if you have something in you, immaterial, that is separate from the mechanism of being human. Something that is different than DNA. Something that is extra, that is supplied from somewhere else. But if you have free will, this free will says that comes from someplace else. There must be an immaterial part of humanity. So the atheistic philosophy will say that you do not have free will. You are only acting as is determined by your DNA. Therefore, we should not put anyone in prison or hold them responsible for their crimes because they are simply acting as fate or Darwinian evolution has created them to be. And we can't even really use the word created there. Has spit them out to be. They're just following nature. That's where atheism leads us when it comes to justice. You can't hold those two things together in an atheistic philosophy without crossing into the immaterial and pulling that element of faith, of immaterial, back into your system. Others have struggled with this in their philosophy. But here's the truth. Life is not meaningless. Life has hope. Life has purpose. In 1 Peter, that great chapter that we spent, or that great book that we spent our time in, the previous two sessions, in chapter 2, verses 21 through 25, Peter actually tells us you need to follow the archetype of Christ. Follow his model. Follow who he is. And as John says, walk in the shoes that he walked in. Turn from evil action and from evil speech. Find hope in the immaterial part of who you are. Your soul, that which cannot be defined by science, that which cannot be placed into a test tube. That is what makes you who you are. You are destined for a divine purpose. You have hope. You have meaning in life. So live morally and just and recognize God as the keeper and guard of the eternality that he has placed within you. Because you will live on. You will not end in pointless indifference. You will live on. And that gives us hope and purpose and meaning for living good, doing good, being good to others, having strong relationships, leaving inheritance to our kids, making life more than just about accumulating things, but giving back to the world, giving back to others, increasing their wisdom, increasing their knowledge, giving their life meaning and hope and purpose, all based on that immaterial part of who we are, the eternality that God has placed in you. For in your heart, the preacher in Ecclesiastes says, God has placed eternity. In Ecclesiastes, in that last chapter, in the last couple of verses of chapter 12, here's what he says. The conclusion, when all has been heard, is this. Fear God. Keep his commandments. Because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act into judgment, everything that is hidden, whether it is good or evil. He writes, recognize your Creator while you are young. Live for God. Keep his commandments. Because this hope applies to every individual, every single person, born and unborn. This applies to them. Our lives matter because they're going to be judged. In conclusion, 3 things. There is no external cause for hope offered in an atheistic lifestyle. There is none. Life is pointless indifference at best. At best. You're going to end, and that's going to be the end of it. And the only way to live with a reason, this is what Peter says, be ready to give a defense. Be ready and able to give a reason for the hope that lies within you. And the only way to live with a reason for the hope that lies within you is to know this uncaused, beginningless, changeless, spaceless, timeless, immaterial, ultra-powerful, personal creator. We could sum it up this way. God matters. God matters. And you and I matter because God exists. Amen. Because God exists. It's an amazing thought. This is why God sent his Son, Christ, into the world. Jesus said it this way, I did not come to condemn the world, but that the world, through me, would be saved from the human predicament. And the human predicament is this. If this being of God does not give it to us freely, there's nothing that we can do to ever merit it. But yet there is a God who has formed you and created you with design and purpose. And Jesus said, I have come that you may have that life and have it in abundance. Because you matter. Because my Father exists in heaven. And he is your Creator. Now, I don't know about you, but I sure find this way of living a whole lot better than the pointless indifference offered by atheism and humanism. To me, it not only does it make sense, but it's like, who in their right mind would want to live that way? In pointless indifference. That nothing matters. That nothing matters. Now, you give me hope. Give me hope. Give me hope. Let me live in hope. And if an atheist wants to call me off my rocker, that's fine. I'm still going to live in hope, man. Because that's a whole lot better. And I've got some pretty good, reasonable explanations of why God exists. This beginningless, spaceless, changeless, timeless, immaterial, ultra-powerful, personal creator of mine. I've got some good, logical reasons of why he exists. And I've got some good scientific reasons of why he exists. And I've got the historical evidence and data that Jesus actually physically resurrected from the dead. And if he came to life because he lives, I too shall live. That's what he said. God put his stamp of approval on him by resurrecting him from the dead. God matters. Amen. God matters. God matters.